Last week I talked about the importance of attention to character in wrestling, and I listed the recent Shawn Michaels-Chris Jericho contract signing as a perfect example. Well, it seems like every time I try to say something nice about the WWE, they decide to throw it back in my face by doing something unbelievably stupid, and look no further for that than the main event of last Monday's Raw. So you're telling me that the WWE writers can remember that Kane once attached a car battery to Shane McMahon's nutsack, but they can't remember that Batista hated Shawn Michaels just a few months ago? When Shawn was tuning up the band, stomping his foot, getting ready to hit the sweet chin music, Batista was standing on the apron, stomping his foot in unison right along with him. What the hell's that about? The last time these guys had any contact with each other at all, Batista hated Shawn's guts, and now all of a sudden they're buddies with no explanation? You have to think about these things. You can't just rewrite a character's history because you're too lazy to work around it. If a feud ends with two guys hating each other, then 6 months later those two guys should still hate each other. When I say attention to character is so important, avoiding crap like this is the reason why. Okay, before I talk about Impact, I have a question for you guys. Now, I noticed last week that my TNA Impact Sting Speaks video has now gotten well over 1,000 views. But thank you for that, by the way. That's the first time any of my Impact videos have broken 1,000 views. What I can't figure out for the life of me, though, is what I did with that video to get those extra views that I didn't do in any of the others. So if you guys have any thoughts about that, please tell me. But anyway, Impact. I liked Impact this show. I like this show a lot. I continued the recent trend of not that much wrestling, but lots of awesome promos. Just like last week, there were tons of great promos all over this show. Jeff Jarrett, Kurt Angle. Sting redeemed himself with a great promo here after the one at No Surrender kind of got away from him a little bit. And something I loved about this, when Sting showed that picture of Hulk Hogan and put him over as like the greatest of all time, and the audience booed the crap out of it and chanted, "Overrated, overrated." I love that. I absolutely love that because I cannot stand Hulk Hogan. I hate Hogan like P.S. Power hates John Cena, like Scott Hudson hates Bradshaw. God bless the crowd in the Impact Zone for that. Because if the TNA writers wanted to make Sting come off like a babyface, they made a stupid move mentioning Hogan because, as you may have noticed, the Hulkster hasn't been getting a lot of good PR lately. So yeah, that made me smile. Great promo by Sting. And also a great promo by Samoa Joe. And I loved that he said that he'd learned his lesson from Nash about playing the mental game, and that he was done yelling, he was done complaining, he played it cool, and that's good. Like I said last week, that's the Samoa Joe that we need to see right now. Cold and calculating on the mic, and a badass motherfucker in the ring. That's the Samoa Joe that needs to walk into Bound for Glory. Speaking of Bound for Glory, it looks like more and more of that show is involving this young versus old War for Respect storyline they got going on. Christian's starting to get involved with it now. He did a really good interview where he sort of explained his take on things, and I really like what they're doing with him here. I mean, you see groups forming on both sides, where you see Consequences Creed and Jay Lethal throwing in their lot with Joe. You got Mick Foley, who's a big X Factor right now, and then there's Christian, who's somewhere in the middle and doesn't know who to support. So you're seeing faces and heels supporting both arguments, and now they're adding a tweener Christian to the mix. You know, it's layers on top of layers on top of layers. And this is really interesting because it's kind of like Christian is the voice of the fans here. I mean, I've read comments from a lot of people who are really torn and don't know who to cheer for. And you've also got people who are really behind the young guys and really behind the veterans. And I got into a debate about this with some people on the Extreme Regime message board. And I ended up saying that, look, we may never agree on this storyline, but the fact that we're still arguing it, the fact that we're still arguing about it after 3 pages of this thread proves that it's doing exactly what it's supposed to do. You know, it's creating interest, inspiring debate. That's one of the hallmarks of a well-told story. So keep that up, TNA. Something else that I loved about this show, Roxy came out disguised as Raisha Saeed and attacked Awesome Kong, which was a great swerve, I thought. She really went apeshit on Kong, too. I mean, great performance by Roxy there. And by Awesome Kong as well. Her facial expressions are always great, and she made it look like Roxy really pulled one over on her big time. And I just checked the Bound for Glory page last night, and the Knockouts title match at the pay-per-view is going to be Roxy versus Taylor versus Kong for the Knockouts title. I'm very excited about that. If this had been announced a few weeks ago, then I'd have Roxy pegged to do the job in this match. But with her as the new subject of the rough cut, and Taylor's push not really working out as well as some people thought it would, I think she might actually have a shot here. I mean, like I said before, TNA doesn't do rough cuts about people that they don't want to push, unless you're VKM. That's neither here nor there. I'm kind of surprised that Angelina isn't in this match. But since the writers have been pimping the beautiful people all over Impact, they obviously think the beautiful people equal ratings, and it's been going on for months now. So for her to not be in there seems kind of strange to me, but I like this matchup. I mean, if you remember a few months back, it was Roxy who came out to fend off Raisha Saeed during Taylor's first title match with Kong when she won the belt in the first place, so it kind of makes sense for these three to go at it. And anyway, it looks like Roxy's finally getting that push that she's deserved for a long time, and that makes me happy. The only thing that really bugged me about this show was the 6-person tag. I mean, I was okay with LAX losing, since I never really understood why they needed Hector Guerrero in the first place. He never really seemed to fit in with them, even though I did kind of enjoy it, but whatever. My problem was that TNA has made it known that Spike TV laid down the law that there can be no man-on-woman violence on Impact, and they even made it part of a storyline when Kurt Angle hired Awesome Kong to take out Karen. So, if the no man-on-woman violence rule is in effect, then how the hell can Jacqueline be in a match with 5 guys? You see what I mean? It's out of whack. I mean, yeah, I know there are ways to cheat it, like they did in this match, but it still doesn't make sense to book a match like this when everyone knows that the men can't attack Jackie. So I just wish the TNA had done something different here. But that was my only real complaint. I was very happy with the rest of the show. What I'm also happy about is that the Bound for Glory hype has been terrific so far. The card is looking more and more stacked, and storyline-wise, the big matches have a ton of momentum behind them. This is a huge improvement over last year when we had the Pac-Man Jones debacle that's best left forgotten. This is really starting to feel like, quote-unquote, TNA's WrestleMania. And you know who else thinks so? The Smashing Pumpkins, that's who. Kudos, TNA, for finally getting a well-known, big-time musical act to do the theme song for a pay-per-view. I mean, I like Crash Anthem and Operator. They're great bands. But before TNA used their music for pay-per-views, I had no idea who they were. But everyone knows the Smashing Pumpkins, and that'll definitely help get a buzz going. So, another good show this week, and next week is something that I'm really excited for. TNA's advertising that Jeff Jarrett will address on Impact the comments Kurt Angle made in that recent UK Sun interview. Oh man, cannot wait for that. Stay tuned.